what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this content. And I was surprised by what we saw at the start of LCS, because this is not kind of the introduction that I thought we were going to be getting. So we're going to go through this and we're going to watch it and discuss it and kind of go through how productions work and what I think was weird and what I think could have been done better. So, wow, thanks.
For the kid.
Bought a shot of whiskey for the kid. Nice. Thanks, Dadris. You're the best. $50. I appreciate it, man. So here we go.
We here at the LCS want to express our unequivocal support of the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight against systemic racism and injustice. Starting today, July 11th, until the LCS Finals, September 6th, we're matching a total of $100,000 in donations made to the ACLU Foundation, the Innocence Project, the Center for Policing Equality, and the NAACP by LCS teams, owners, and LCS and Academy players and staff. Earlier this month, Riot Games pledged $1 million through the Social Impact Fund, initial contributions going to the Innocence Project and the ACLU. Now, Riot Games is deploying $10 million towards game-related businesses led by founders underrepresented in the games community. And for those aspiring to start a career in gaming, Riot Games is establishing a partnership with Florida A&M University to support underrepresented software engineers, alongside a $50,000 scholarship through the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund. While these are only the first steps made by the LCS and Riot Games to support racial justice and equality, we encourage everyone to continue educating themselves on institutional racism and how to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. There's a lot of work to do now and in the future, but the LCS will be here with you every week until finals, and it starts tonight. We're going to step away, but when we return, we do have our pregame analysis for our first game at 6 p.m. between 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses, followed by our spring finals rematch between FlyQuest and Cloud9. We'll see you then after the break.
Susie came at the most awkward time with the baby, of course. This was definitely the most awkward time that could have happened.
I don't even know what you're doing.
Okay. Well, that was very awkward, but I'm glad they're here. Thank you, Alice Has Fugly Feet, for Twitch Prime. So basically, give the baby a whiskey. No, baby doesn't need whiskey.
Max doesn't want you talking about Riot, you know? Max has learned from a young age.
Yes. All right.
Guys.
So first off, I mean, I don't know why we have like wide Latigris, like just from a technical standpoint, like before we even get into the content. This is a really weird technical setup, and I don't know why there have been like such like very strange distortion issues from these webcams from a production setup. But second off, I mean, I've talked about this already. Like, you know, Riot, they're driving this initiative to match donations to various groups. It's all fine and dandy. They're obviously trying to raise awareness about the situations that are happening right now, which is all fine and dandy. But what I don't understand about this is, like, this is after we saw the dive, which was a rerun, and they did the 8 minutes for with the black screen. You immediately see this. And what I don't understand about this is, first off, as far as I know, Latigris is not a Riot employee. She's an independent contractor. So it's very weird that she would be giving this. And even I think it's also weird that Dash did it like the next day. Maybe she is a full-time Riot employee, but that doesn't even matter. What matters is that this kind of announcement should have been done by the commissioner of the league, or it should have been done by a Riot executive that is talking about their company policy or their esports vision. It needs to be done by somebody who is an executive and has actually like something meaningful to say. It shouldn't be done by the talent. And some people were making the argument when I tweeted about this that it should have been done by, like, people recognize Dash. Okay, that's fine, but that didn't happen on the first day. It wasn't even Dash. It was somebody new. And then second off, like, if you're arguing that people don't know who the commissioner is, then I would say that is a problem in and of itself, and that they should be putting these people on more to talk directly with the fans, because in my mind, that is part of the job of being commissioner. In fact, now that I am a commissioner, actually I was at the time this happened too, it just wasn't announced yet. That, you know, I hope to be an interface between the fans, and I think that it is my job to make these kind of announcements. So, and the question as to why you do this. So first off, it's more official. And second off, like, as we're going to see, having this announcement right here with the, you know, when you're thinking about creating a show, okay, and you're thinking about tone, having this come up, you're trying to deal with a serious issue right now, but immediately after 3 minutes, there's a 3-minute ad break after this. And so what happens is Latigris is making something very serious. And so now in my brain, I have this like association with what's going on right now with her. And then we get to this, and then immediately 3 minutes later, I just see happy Friday Night League stuff. And it's like, oh,
everyone.
Well, that thing was really serious. Hello, welcome to the show. It's the same person. It's like emotional whiplash. Like, my neck hurts watching this. You know, you need to create walls and separation within the broadcast so that I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. You know what I mean? It's very weird. It's super weird. Like, the funny music, like do 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 do. Like, it's so confusing.
Hello, everyone.
Everything's confusing, right? And I know that they're trying to make something here that differentiates, like, so we have to talk about what the goal here is, because the goal of Monday Night League or Friday Night League was to create something like a different product, create a different packaging. That's why they don't have Dash here. It's why that they're trying to do what they did here. But the issue is that they clearly don't know what to do. And they had a big miss on this one. And it was such a big miss that I'm not even sure they know what a target looks like. That's the concern that I have, is that I don't know what Friday Night League is supposed to be, right? I can't describe it, because is it supposed to be more fun than Saturday and Sunday LCS? Is it supposed to be more memes? Is it supposed to be less, like, I don't know what it is. I'm still confused after watching Monday Night League and now Friday Night League this entire year, what exactly the concept is. And this is why you need a creative director, because somebody actually has to have a vision for this. And because it changed so much from what Monday Night League was, which, to be fair, in the beginning was just this, like, this logo with Monday instead of Friday, and that was the only real difference that I could tell between regular and Monday Night League LCS. And now they tried this, so at least they tried something. Now, the State Farm analyst desk is super
Friday
weird.
Night League, the LCS's
This is too loud.
newest way to kick off some competition.
So let's talk about this now. We have Wide Probably Happy right here with some pixels. And then we have what really bothers me about this set, and they did change it. They like turned off these lights, I noticed, behind them on the second day, because it's actually really hard to look at right now. But it's like, I really don't like how everything is up and down. It makes it very hard for me to follow visually. And I guess I don't understand why necessarily there's like these separations with these really like bright lines. They turned that down. It did look better. But I know they have to display like the State Farm logo, but these webcams I just feel like could be bigger, and I don't know why all the aspect ratios was.
My name's Gabriella Tigers
are
W.
weird.
Allen, and I am so excited to christen FNL with an affable assembly of analysts. We have Neil Prawley Hamad.
So here's the other problem. You can tell that she's reading a prompter right now, so it feels super awkward. because she's not looking into her webcam. And one of the things that has been very striking to me about LCS and LEC and other tournaments going online is that you really can tell like who has been doing webcam shows for years, because it's its own skill. I had to learn how to do it from years of doing SI. And so it really is its own thing. And a lot of these people are not used to doing it. So it does feel stiff. And I think you guys actually, having seen this, you can see that how hard it is to do a show like SI where we're on webcams, because it's very hard to make it sound natural, and you kind of have to learn how to do that.
Mark Zimmerman and
yes,
Sam
I
Cody.
agree. I think this is a good point. Friday Night League shows needs a Stephen A. Smith villain character. Yeah, I mean, that would be fun. I think like if you did this show and you did it with LS and Dom on the desk, it would be really different, and you'd have something to play with.
Hartman Kensler. How you doing, fellas?
Very good. Okay. Very good.
So here's the first thing. When you're on a webcam show, there's always going to be some level of audio delay, and people can't read your body language a lot of the time. So when you just kind of generally address things, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. That's something that I had to learn. You have to individually address people, which changes the dynamic, because as a desk host, if I'm in person with people, I can, people can just look at each other and see who's going to talk, and there's not going to be people stumbling all over each other. So that's just a thing here.
Good vibes all around. We're kicking off the weekend. We're about to get into some summer split now.
I don't know what's going on.
Any craziness
here
from you between spring split until now? Any surprises you got for us?
Thanks for the bits, Formation. I appreciate it.
I found out how terrible I am at cooking, and that's what I've been doing with this break. I'm trying to figure out how to...
So let's go back. We literally just had this like really intense announcement from Latigris, and now we're talking about probably failing at cooking. Like, there's no control or direction about tone on this broadcast. It feels incredibly awkward, as if they don't know how to kick this off themselves, and it's not helped by the fact that the same person was reading that announcement who's now trying to engage in small talk. And I don't think it's Latigris' fault. I just think that this was she should have said no to doing that announcement. Like, sometimes as a caster, you just have to be like, is this a good idea for this thing to be coming out of my mouth? And if the producers are telling you something, and this is a very different scenario, and I don't mean to like equate them in terms of seriousness, but one of the mistakes that I made in my career was very early on in 2012 at my first MLG event in New York. Some of you are going to remember, and thank God, and you will not be able to find this, I promise you, because it doesn't exist. They forced me to do an interview with Dyrus's pillow, and some of you OG people will remember that. There is a screenshot of it, but they deleted the video immediately because it was so terrible. And I regret doing that. And I'm not saying this is the equivalent thing, but you just have to make sure that to kind of stand your ground, because what the producers are going to do is they're going to try and use you to affect something. And if it's going against your brand, or you think, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea, or maybe if I do this, that people are going to kind of associate me in a certain way with something that I don't like, then, you just have to, you gotta learn how to say no. And you guys won't be able to find it. I see you already trying to find it. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. There is a screenshot, but the video doesn't exist. Thank God, by the way. I'm incredibly glad that it doesn't exist. So yeah, I think it's not her fault. I think that if I'm her, what I'm trying to do on this broadcast is be the one who's bringing the fun, who's changing the tone from regular LCS to Friday Night League. And I think that by doing that announcement, you're basically going against the tone that you are trying to create. And that maybe you just ask like, hey, can we do something pre-recorded that looks really professional, of someone else doing it, so that you know, we don't have this like emotional whiplash like I was saying.
It's just not working. Everything is just getting.
So this is some really awkward banter that is. It normally wouldn't be as awkward as it is right now, but it is more awkward because of what happened immediately
my peak
previously.
Is a can of chili that I can heat up the chili, so probably's got me beat.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
a little bit.
Eat
Right, where are we
directly.
going
I don't
with
know.
this?
Off season, I guess if you talk about double lift leaving team.
So the other thing that's super awkward about this, guys, is that this is the first time you are seeing a live broadcast from the LCS since the finals 2 months ago, right? So kicking it off with small talk instead of kicking it off with the big storylines like they're getting into right now with Double Lift going to TSM, Team Liquid promoting Tactical is weird. It's just weird. It doesn't... For a broadcast, we have to go back and we have to talk about how the LCS perceived itself, which I also don't agree with, but at least like it had sort of a cohesion of being the professional sports-like broadcast. So coming in here, it really is confusing to start this way because it's also not what we're used to LCS. Wow, did you actually find it? No way. I've actually never seen it since it happened. Oh, you rickrolled me. That's one of my friends from home in Colorado. Well, that's a bummer. Good job though. I did get baited. I know it doesn't exist, so I shouldn't have been baited by that. I shouldn't have been baited by that. Cosmic Loop. That's how by the way, guys, that's how paranoid I am that it might exist. That's how traumatized I am. Because even though I know it doesn't, I thought for a brief second that it might. That's how traumatized I am by it. So yeah. I just think like if this had still been on Monday night and we would have gotten more of the normal LCS intro, then it might have been okay to start this way because we would already had 2 days of LCS. And I think that was probably the mistake that they made, was that they had this idea of what they wanted Monday Night League to be, and then they moved it to Friday, and they didn't consider the ramifications of putting it first in terms of tone. So I think that's just probably like a mistake they made conceptually, that when they moved the day, they didn't reevaluate what it meant to have it first, if that makes sense.
Liquid and moving to TSM. That was pretty crazy.
Fair enough,
Weird
fair
that
enough.
Kobe's the
Well,
one bringing
I know
this
that
up
we
'cause
have
he's
a
not
lot
the
to get
host.
through here in Friday Night League, and as you can see around us, the LCS got some new digs while we were away. So let me be the first to welcome you to the League Control System's dynamically operated media environment, or in short, the LCS
Okay.
Dome powered by.
Let me explain what this is. So people might be confused. This is a deliverable for Alienware, and what a deliverable is a sponsorship obligation. Now, if I had to guess, I don't know what they promised Alienware, but probably it was some sort of all-encompassing branding around the LCS. And in the pandemic, they cannot deliver on what they told Alienware they could do. So this is the solution they came up with, which isn't terrible, honestly. You have to make the sponsor happy. It's a tough situation to be involved in. So this is what they came up with. It's not... It's okay. It's okay. I like how they created the different environments for casters. I like Rivington popping up. That's cute. Rivington's such a nice guy. I like the... You know, I generally think it looks okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking we actually need this biodome.
Do I think that this is some sort of incredible reveal that is going to change the way we view that LCS is produced? No. I think it's an interesting way to do things in extraordinary circumstances.
thing there. But everybody, I hope you're enjoying what we have around us, everything that's
But
to come.
it is
I'm super
a lot of it
excited
is
for all
taken
that we
away
have
by
for
the
Friday
fact
Night
that
League because we're adding
the
new
aspect ratios are
elements,
so whack. So it just kind of
including a talented individual
makes it
to
look
the
bad.
floor based on your incredible feedback from the LCS as well.
Okay, so let's talk about Sushi Dragon. So, first off, I fucking love Sushi Dragon. We talked about how he helped me a lot with kind of my stream concepts and everything like that. He's a wonderful dude. He probably has the most technically advanced stream on Twitch. What he has made in terms of his ability to do what he does is absolutely incredible. He is brilliant. He's incredibly creative. And I think, for him, there's no negative here because he gets to be on a massive stream to promote what he does. So for Sushi Dragon, this is amazing. Of course you're going to take this deal, right? Nobody blames Sushi Dragon. And I think what happened was they used him because after the finals for summer, they needed something fun. And I think that what he did for his dance party after the LCS spring final was a great idea. I think the LCS was trying to consider how they could add something unique to the broadcast, again, in a shitty situation where they couldn't have their finals in Dallas. And they're like, wow, this streamer is really cool. And a lot of people around the LCS scene like this guy, watch this guy. I've been a sub on his channel for forever personally. So let's have him do this after show. And it worked really well in that context, right? Because it's after the championship. If you want to stick around, here's something cool that's going to integrate our League of Legends characters into it. It's weird. It's exciting. And I think it works. Now, whatever happened in their brains after that point, I don't really know. Because that to me is a one-off. It's not, hey, Sushi Dragon worked after the finals. Let's add Sushi Dragon to the start of this broadcast, right? Where people would like to hear, like, if I'm coming into LCS, and again, this is one of those things that might have worked on Monday had we already had 2 days of games, but definitely doesn't work if it's the first game of this summer split. I want to hear about all the things that have changed. I want to hear about Double Lift. I want to hear about the finals rematch between Cloud9 and FlyQuest. Like, this is where you're serious about, you need to go through, just from a production standpoint, you need to go through all the high-level storylines right now. Right now. Because that's what people are tuning in for. You're trying to refresh your audience's memory about what's changed. Maybe I haven't been paying attention for the last 2 months and I don't know all this stuff. Well, it's time to re-engage those fans for why they are here, and they are here to watch esports games. So immediately going through that, and also it's just this emotional whiplash stuff I keep talking about. Now remember, we were 6.5 minutes ago, talking about very serious societal issues, and I have gone from that to a break to small talk, to a very brief discussion over high-level storylines, and now to Sushi Dragon. This is insane. Like, how am I supposed to process this? There's too much going on, and it also doesn't make any sense together. None of these elements stitched together in any kind of coherent way. Not creatively, not in terms of narrative. Like, just as a rule, here's how these things can operate. Now, if I was presenting the same high-level storylines in wacky ways, so let's say I have Sushi Dragon talking about Double Lift's move, and then I have some other weird thing talking about a different storyline, well, at least I have some sort of like narrative arc that puts all of this together, right? Even if the style is changing, right? Or you can change the narrative, but you can keep the style the same. You can't just like do this, which is change everything every 2 minutes. Like, it's too much.
I'm still here. If you remember me, I'm the Sushi Dragon. How you doing?
I mean, I love Sushi Dragon. I feel bad that it's not his fault. He was like set up to fail, and it's a big bummer.
Congratulations to C9, the reigning champions. Oh, will you look at that? Deborah.
Yes.
I didn't know you were a C9 fan.
I love him so much.
I didn't know you were a C9 fan.
But yeah, this is
Deborah, but
weird in
relax.
context.
I didn't know you were a C9 fan.
Of course. I love you, Sven. Let's go C9.
Cue it up.
I'm gonna turn this up a little bit.
One more time.
All right, we'll turn it. I'm sorry, I was turning it back up. So I like his dancing Dravens, but in the context of everything else we've just seen, like, it feels like some sort of. It feels like I'm channel surfing. It feels like Robot Chicken, but here's why Robot Chicken worked, is because even though you're getting different little chunks and narratives, the style is always the same, right? You always have this sort of claymation, and you know what the tone of Robot Chicken as a show is. Like, this is crazy. And I also just think conceptually, I just want to know what this conversation was at Riot. Like, they had 2 months to come up with this pre-show. 2 months. And I want to know what the conversation was, because what they did in this segment was they basically just outsourced the creative direction, right? This is Sushi Dragon's stream. All you are doing, this is not Friday Night League. This is not LCS. This is you putting Sushi Dragon's stream onto the LCS channel. There is nothing here that screams LCS to me. So you basically just abdicated your responsibility of creative direction. Right? You just gave up. You gave up.
Now, I remember actually before the after party happened, Mark, you had hyped up Sushi Dragon a lot, and I thought, all right, what's this guy got in store?
Why are we talking about Sushi Dragon before we start the summer split? We need to talk about the teams and the play. It's like they completely forgot what a sports league is.
So, as somebody who advocated for him pretty extensively beforehand, how happy are you to see him as a regular part of Friday Night League?
I'm pretty stoked.
He can't even
I love
respond.
Sushi Dragon.
I got in.
Look at Kobe's face.
Now, I remember actually before the after party happened, Mark, you had hyped up Sushi Dragon a lot, and I thought, all right, what's this guy got in store? So, as somebody who advocated for him pretty extensively beforehand, how happy?
Kobe is actually dead inside right now. like
Happy are you to see him as a regular part of Friday Night League?
So, what's confusing about this is Kobe has worked for the LCS for like 8 years. Why didn't somebody ask him what he thought about this before it happened? I mean, clearly. But look at his series of expressions.
I'm pretty stoked. I love Sushi Dragon. Got to give a shout out to Travis Gafford. I know he loves being like, I started working with him a long time ago, but the more he gets integrated with the league scene, the more entertaining it is. I absolutely love his editing style and just the craziness that comes with it.
We all love Sushi Dragon,
Yeah,
guys.
I
He's
got
great.
so engrossed in what he was doing after the after party and his explanation of it all. So I hope everyone's looking forward to it just as much as we are. There are a lot of things that changed in the off season between spring and.
Here's another thing I don't understand. Why not just use Sushi Dragon as the Friday night party after the broadcast is over in exactly the same way that they used him for the finals? That seems like it could be fun. To me.
Now, and
I'd keep watching the stream after it was over if he was on.
a lot of that included rosters. So I thought to myself.
What a-
There are a
Kobe's
lot of
face
things
is
that
my
changed
jam
in the
right now.
off-season between spring and now, and a lot of that included rosters. So I thought to myself, I love
This is so forced from her. She's so over the top.
that Draco's, Flowers, and a lot of the members of the LEC crew have been taking a stab at rapping, and I wanted to give it a try. So, for our update on all of the
Kobe. So here's the other thing, guys. When you're producing this segment, why don't we have a solo for her? Because it's so normally when you would shoot an analyst desk and you have a single camera for the host. The reason is because when the host is doing one of these longer setups or reading the teleprompter or whatever, you don't have to look at three people just awkwardly sitting there. Like, why why don't they have a single for the Tigris? Because like it's incredibly weird to watch these other people sitting around doing this.
Changes, I'm going to hand it over to Gabriella La Tigris Devia Allen for a totally not at all whatsoever pre-recorded Friday night freestyle.
Kobe face.
Thanks, La Tigris. No video, no studio, no backup, no horse, but I'm guessing that my rap still has some force. Some rosters gotta shake up, so here I go. An off-season update with a little bit of flow. With Dardock and Viper Dig, won't pay the piper. New jungler for IMC, how long for Xmas TSM on the men deal. Might be heaven sent, the tactical revision could be TL's right decision. No, GG, Tanner time, please. Could Hooney's evil genius bring this league to its knees? Will the C be enough to topple EG, sharpen logo? Yo, solo, best believe what's coming. All this scrapping, turn to the sky. You kings are unconcerned, look at Cloud9 fly. Back to you.
Okay. So why didn't this work? I think this didn't work for a few reasons. First off, I think that the introduction and what's happening right now is incredibly awkward. So look, I think that the segment itself wasn't terrible. I think it was okay. Like, I think she did an okay job. But I think that when it's so awkward to set it up and then it's so awkward when we come out of it, that it makes it seem worse than it is. And I think that also it's another problem of having it in the exact same space that she's in right here. So if you were doing this, wow, 4 years, XChip102. Thanks, man, for the sub. If you're going to do something like this on a normal broadcast, so let's talk about how it could have worked. It could have worked in the same way that, they're on the desk and then they throw it to a pre-recorded video where she's somewhere else and they add more production value to it and they make it kind of a thing. But because she's sitting in exactly the same place at the desk, there's nothing special about this. It just seems weird. Like she's rapping while these guys are standing there or just like listening to her awkwardly. I think that they needed to record that segment somewhere else and then toss to it more naturally, or even I wouldn't have even had them toss to it. So this is when we talk about run of show. So run of show is the order in which these kind of segments go into. It's like a document that is created that says, okay, here is this shot. Here's what we're going to discuss in this segment. And it's going to toss here to this video. So what the run of show would have looked like was like, analyst desk comes back from Sushi Dragon, talks about Sushi Dragon, the Tigris throws to the rap video, reacts to rap video, right? Now, where I think this could have worked is like coming out of a commercial where they're not throwing to it. So like after the 3-minute timer, it just appears and you see it as kind of a fun intro to the desk. Then you do a react and then it's much more natural. But building the run of show in this way, as well as not having her in an actual different location, makes it seem super casual, super forced, and really awkward, even though I don't think the rapping itself was bad. It's the setup that made it look a lot worse. And the other thing I think, thank you, Lil Susie, my wife, for subscribing for 50 months. I mean, that's kind of weird, Susie, because like, we only get a portion of that money back when you subscribe to me. So you're actually just like giving some of our money to Amazon. So it's kind of weird, but anyway, it's fine. So I think, thank you, Dadris. Appreciate it. So I think like the other thing about it too is that because she's new, it seems less than authentic when she's like name dropping all these players and making all these references to the scene. I think when you're new to something, and this is definitely the approach that I took when I'm new to a game, or when I'm hosting Counter-Strike, is that you really don't want to make yourself the center of attention, because there's a bunch of established casters that are with you that are already trusted and liked by the fans, and your job is to more or less enable them and make them shine until people get comfortable enough, until you've kind of found your groove and you're able to do some more things yourself. So I think what's also awkward is it feels very forced, because the audience itself knows that she's not a staple of this broadcast, and featuring her in this way where it doesn't feel natural. So I think it's not the time yet for that. I think, if Dash did it, I think it'd be really different. And if, Shox did it over in Europe, it would be really different. But I think that this is just kind of like a large number of bad things happening at one time. First off, awkwardly introduced, and the lead out was also awkward. The fact that it's in the same space doesn't differentiate it at all, so it makes it feel really like low budget and unintentional. It doesn't feel like an intentional choice. It feels like she just decided to rap on the spot, and everyone else just has to deal with it. And then it also just feels unnatural for her as a personality at this point in time. In a year, maybe that changes, right? But this was weird. For all of those reasons. So when people say cringe, I think it feels cringe to me, and I don't really like that term, but I'm explaining why it feels weird to me. And it feels weird for a lot of reasons.
That was first take, by the way.
Yeah, I did do it live. Like, it was one when I did it.
Oh, okay, live to tape.
You
Yeah,
know?
okay.
So, and if you watch Sway in the Morning or anything, I mean, looking at how they do it, I highly doubt it's all right on the spot. So
here's my other problem. We are now, when did this start? 1 hour and 4 minutes into this video. I am at I'm nearly 15 minutes into watching this broadcast at this point in time, and I have heard nothing about any high-level storylines.
that's my defense of it. But
Like, you cannot kick off an LCS split like this. If I'm a team owner at this point in time, I am so mad, because I am a partner with this organization that is refusing to talk about my team or my players. Like, it's
what we need to go over.
It's crazy.
Would you agree, probably? Did you get everything that you needed, or do you feel that we have to talk about this a bit more?
Let's see. I think the biggest one for me, I mean, you started off with it with Dardoch, tapping on him.
How are we 15 minutes in, and this is the first time we're talking about
a new team? I always say,
storylines.
this is his last chance. This is the roster that he's going to work with. This is the meta for him.
And you're literally on a broadcast with people whose primary job is providing analysis for this league. And they've just been sitting there on camera doing nothing.
But
they're like in jail right now. They're in broadcast jail. So the other part of this is you haven't done anything to enable 3/4 of the people who are on your broadcast to contribute. Like, you can't build a show not around the contributions of your talent. And the worst part is that if there was some sort of cohesion to the tone or the direction or the creativity behind this, I could, it might be more forgivable. But I still don't know what Friday Night League is. Throughout this process, I have learned nothing about what Friday Night League is as a product, right? I don't know what the tone is supposed to be. I don't know what I'm watching even when Sushi Dragon's coming on, everything like that. Like, you cannot describe this with words. Like, if you can't describe what you're seeing in something like this with adjectives, it is failing.
Other players he's played with, like, this guy just knows how to network, and that's the most important thing in this business.
I think, for me, I look at it, it's like you get motivation on like those revenge tours you hear people talking about and going against your former team. Think about how much motivation Dardoch has with 6 former teams.
Those are all fine.
That's
Like, there's nothing wrong with this.
You're extra motivated to go up against. It's actually
every
so
game's
smart.
a revenge game.
Yeah,
man.
people are thinking about it the wrong way. They're thinking, oh my God, this guy is so toxic. He gets kicked from all these LCS teams.
Yeah, don't bag on
He's
Latagrus
never
either,
gonna have
guys. Like,
another
she's
chance
doing her
getting back
job.
on
It's
teams,
fine.
but
Like,
what
she
about-
was just like Sushi Dragon. She was thrown under the bus here. Okay, like this sucks as a caster to get owned like this. And part of it is, like I said, I think she should have said no to some things. But sometimes you just make mistakes, and you learn from them, and you move on,
fact
and you
that
get better.
Every time he gets kicked, he gets picked up again. You got to focus on the positives here. He's still have another chance getting back.
Why is this
But
here?
What about thinking about
So
it
let's
the
let's
wrong
even just
way?
listen to
They're
this.
thinking, oh my God, this guy is so toxic.
Okay.
He gets kicked
Okay,
from
we're
all
watching
these
this.
LCS teams. He's never gonna have
Why is there
another
this
chance
shot
getting
and
back
then
on teams,
music
but
while in the
what
middle of
about the
Kobe's
fact
point?
that every time he
This should be B-roll of Dardoch.
gets kicked, he gets picked up again.
What? So this is another thing. Here's how I like to produce things, and here's how I like to see shows go. I like to constantly be reinforcing the players and the narratives. So if I was LCS right here, what I would do is I would put up a picture of Dardoch, and then I would also put up B-roll of Dardoch, because what you want is to create connections in your viewer's mind between the person. Because remember, people watch sports, and a lot of times because they like the characters, especially esports, they like the players, they like their personalities, they like their streams, they like watching them, they like learning from them. So you must constantly reinforce in people's brain who this person is. And so you should put at least a picture of him up there so that we can see, or like B-roll of him in an interview with the audio cut out while Kobe's talking, right? So that we can see Dardoch. So if you're just tuning in, you're like, oh, now I know what Dardoch looks like in my brain. And I remember, oh, I like him or don't like him. Or like, here's an excellent opportunity.
From all these LCS teams,
While he's saying all these LCS teams, make a montage of Dardoch in all the different jerseys, like video interviews, or have him on video of like changing from this team to this team to this team. Here's Echo Fox. Here he is on, TSM now. And so people can see like, you're trying to reinforce the points. And by the way, the producers know these points are coming because that's what the meetings are for beforehand. You say, I am going to talk about this point, and then you build a package around that in order to help tell that story. And instead, they put up this Honda screen and just like, I'm completely distracted now while this music's going on. And I'm watching these squares move.
What about the fact that every time he gets kicked, he gets picked up again? You got to focus on the positives.
And he just stops.
Here.
What is
He's
happening?
still
Did they push
able
the
to
wrong
make it
button?
work.
I think they just pushed the wrong button,
That's the thing,
guys.
and as far as what we have with these roster changes going down, and we have to dive into these.
But how do they have nobody
Takes a
cutting
bit further
B-roll for
with
this
Dardoch
entire show?
plays.
We have not seen any players. I have seen 0 League of Legends players in the last 15 minutes.
I think on top of the fact of networking, who doesn't want a complete closet with jerseys from every single team in the LCS? And I do feel like he is actually within arm's reach of that mark. Doesn't he have, how many teams has he been on at this point?
This is his 7th, I believe. And the cool thing is, sometimes teams rotate out. There's new teams join the league. You could, in some part, play on more teams than there ever were in the league, because Echo Fox is gone now, but he's got that one. So who knows? Maybe he'll get up to 11, 12. Who knows?
So we have no
Could
B-roll
just
of
keep counting
Dardoch.
on, up and up, but he's not the only one that ended up switching things around this time.
There's no
around.
graphics. So the other reason that this seems super awkward, guys, is because you're used to like the cameras changing. So here's Latagrus' single, and here's a close-up of Mark Z. So without that happening, like normally the awkwardness is hidden by close-ups, so you don't have to watch 4 people just kind of staring straight forward. They didn't do that. Like, I assume this virtual set you could just like zoom in, like enhance, right? I guess you can't.
So, Xmithy, we're not going to be seeing him here on IMT.
But you also try and cover up the awkward parts with gameplay footage, which is B-roll, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm using production terms. Gameplay footage or Dardoch footage.
Starting in week number 1. What do we have to say about that?
Here we go. We figured it out. We figured out how to put a player on the screen. It took 17 minutes to put a player on the screen. Think about that.
I mean, the just decision to bench Smithy is one that I feel like we haven't gotten great clarification on. Immortals put out a 9-minute video where they kind of talked about it, and they're like, oh yeah, we started scrimming 4 weeks before other people with internal scrims, trying to find the best roster that we could and think about.
This is also a pet peeve of mine, guys. Don't put stats on screen if you're not going to talk about them. Don't you do it.
About synergies and stuff, but then in that they didn't say like we think this is the best roster to win right now. They said that they mentioned 2021 and looking forward to that. They also mentioned going to Worlds. They also said that this roster is
it's
still
also
subject
way
to
too
change.
long.
So to me, this just feels like a total crapshoot, in that it's somewhat of a punt until 2021, but also still not really wanting to say that while trying to get the best of both worlds, but getting none of it.
And it's not even.
Yes, why did they not buy everyone the same exact camera for consistency? Great point, Bandit GG. So I can tell you from my Overwatch League colleagues that there is a very high-level, expensive camera company, and they make production equipment called Blackmagic. And all of my former colleagues who still work for the Overwatch League were sent by Blizzard Blackmagic cameras to put on top of their monitors and the setups to give the best quality of production. Why didn't LCS do this? I don't know. I mean, there's also the bigger question of like, why aren't they in studio? Obviously, the coronavirus cases are still growing in Los Angeles. But what we did for Flashpoint is we said, okay, casters, we're going to keep operating in studio with a skeleton crew for production, only the people who need to be there. We were separated from production, and the casters, we only went to the studio and went home. So if you have no other contact with people, it's not entirely safe, but it is very relatively safe, especially in a world where gyms are open in Los Angeles right now, so I could literally walk outside and go to the gym. I would argue that it's safer just to say, okay, everybody, just stay at home, order your groceries, order your food, and just make a commitment to each other's health, not to do anything else so that we can use the studio.
Even just expected either. They're also benching Hakuho. I mean, these are some of the players that people are looking to on this team as some of the best performers and some of the most experienced players in the entire league. Now, them talking about, in that video about them not being solidified on these players and still looking to change it. To me, this idea of 10-man roster.
All right, so we're in a normal conversation now, but again, the thing is,
Springs.
Like Mark was,
they keep changing the look at this. The lighting in the background keeps changing.
maybe, and I don't know. This has got to be.
That's so distracting.
This was the right one because it doesn't look like it on paper.
Now, before we get to the last big hitter of the roster changes, Kobe, I believe we have some breaking news that just came through today, right?
Yeah, I mean, TSM announced more changes. TSM's always in the headlines, but today was pretty cool because right before the show,
blasted it as well for CSGO. You guys are right. Everyone had the same mic cam. They sent them like a background. Same thing with Overwatch League. So I don't understand why LCS, again, 2 months. Had 2 months to do this, and everyone is in the same city except for maybe Latigris, right? I don't know where she lives.
Other cycle in the TSM history books here. They've re-added double lift, and it was actually
so they do have singles, but we didn't use these before for some reason. We just wanted it to look super awkward.
Parth as well. I feel like piece by piece they're starting to put together the old form of TSM where they actually found so much success. But this one to me was actually
so here's
really
another thing.
Because
so we're talking about double lift, the most popular player right now in the LCS. I think that's fair to say. We haven't seen double lift. We haven't seen B-roll of them. Like, here's where you put the footage of them winning all those championships together. Where is it? Just make a 5-minute montage of them lifting up some trophies. This is so weird.
Parth has not been involved in strategic League of Legends for a long time. So if they're moving Peter Zhang back to Academy and bringing up Parth, it seems more like a figurehead move, and Double Lift and Bjergsen.
But you have so much footage of this team. Like you have to show to reinforce the storylines. There might be fans here who never watched League of Legends during that era, or there might be fans of TSM who really fondly remember it. Like, you have to put that on the screen.
To me, As they even in their announcement, they cited Doublelift and Bjergsen both asking for this move. What do you guys think?
I don't know. It's just
because again, you can't address the field in a webcam show. You can't. It's very hard to do that.
Not like, it doesn't sound like a ton of confidence behind it. I know they asked for Parth to come back, but I also know that they were looking for their coaches in the offseason too. So
show me Parth. So we're talking about TSM coaches. Show the tweet where they say we are taking coach applications, and then show the tweet where they announce Parth as their coach and say, here's the storyline. They were looking for coaches. Then they put their general manager Parth back up, show a picture of Parth coaching previously when he was on this roster. Why is there nothing?
It definitely feels a little bit, I can't tell if I should be excited or not. And I love Parth too. So it's just like, as a lot of things with TSM right now are, you can't really put it into words. It's both hype and not hype at the same time.
And probably we're talking about the switching up of rosters and things, and you look over at Evil Geniuses, an interesting situation with the top lane picking up Huni, but still having.
Where is the
here.
roster
So
graphic?
What does that add to
there
that
we go.
dynamic
Okay,
between those two
finally.
players?
Okay, but this doesn't work, guys. This doesn't work. So you can't see it because my webcam is in the way. Hold on. Oops. So here's Kumo.
I mean, I think
so they show
Kumo's
this
pretty
graphic
safe.
for
You
EG.
should be pretty happy for this summer split for sure because.
But the subject of the conversation is Huni, but Huni is not on screen.
There's no way in hell that EG is going to remove Bang or Jizuke. Those are two way important roles on the team that they've kind of identified how to play with them. So I think Kumo's safe, and I think his role now.
So like they're almost doing the right thing, but it's still wrong.
In this summer split, like I know spring was not great for him, so this is kind of his time for like I'm either going to be a really successful carry top player, which is going to be pretty hard in this kind of climate, or he's going to have to be like that rock that like Licorice always talks about top lane being. Like the way Solo came into FlyQuest and was just that rock. He was putting out pressure on the map, but also like didn't take all the resources in the game. So I think that's what he has to decide for this summer split.
And speaking of this new pickup, I mean, as far as our first match here for the summer split, it is EG versus 100 Thieves. And while we know what the Evil Geniuses...
I think this is the first time that they've actually talked about a matchup. And we're 22 minutes into this broadcast.
Roster is going...
I don't think, except for the 3-minute break right before they started the cooking talk, I don't even think we've seen or heard about what matchups are actually tonight.
To be. Kobe, do you think that it's ever worth benching Bang to bring in Huni?
I mean, that is a really tough question. I personally think that...
So what I would do in this scenario is I would have created a graphic that has the two possible iterations of EG. So one with Deftly and Huni, and one with Bang and Kumo. Just to, with their faces, just to visually reinforce like the two versions of EG we could see.
Game would be the game where they would show their hand if they were planning on doing that, because going against 100 Thieves, they've got someday, you know, one of the best top laners that you're ever going to face in the LCS. That is a big part of 100 Thieves win condition. If you have plans of switching in Huni,
we're talking about Huni and we're looking at Kumo. And someday
would have been in this game, and since they've elected to keep in Kumo,
okay,
I
there we
doubt
go.
that they're
All right.
actually going to.
Also, the music's
unless,
annoying.
you
We can get rid of
something,
that.
Really exceptional happens in practice during the summer split, because taking out Bang is a big cost. Bang was such a huge part of EG's win conditions in spring split.
And looking more at Someday specifically, because we got news that...
I guess what I would have done here is instead of talking about the matchup, I think I would have put Huni there instead of Someday, so you could be like, let's look at the stats from last split, because Huni was playing last split for Dignitas. That way you have a meaningful comparison, because that's what Kobe's talking about. And then you switch it over to Bang versus Deftly.
2022. Considering his performance with this organization in the past, Mark, what does that mean for 100 Thieves having him as a central piece for this extended period of time?
feels like they secured themselves basically a top 3 top laner for the next couple of years. That's a huge pickup, and one that I think people have not given enough, ups to, enough credit to for Papa Smithy, signing him for this long. He's an incredibly talented player, and I think it's.
Do we have someday B-roll? Do we have someday
something solid to build
graphics?
The whole rest of those years.
While that top lane has been a solid pillar for 100 Thieves, a lot of questions have.
So this is. Now, I don't know what happened here. They could have just been running into time crunch,
signing him for
right?
This long.
But they don't actually say anything about someday here.
I think it's great that they've secured.
What I learned from this segment is Mark's opinion is that someday is a top 3 top laner in LCS. But I don't know why. It doesn't tell me about someday's history. It doesn't tell me about someday's play.
In this case, the matchup for our first match of the day is going to be Jizuke versus Ryoma. Probably a lot have talked about the improvement made by Ryoma towards the end of the spring split.
Okay, this makes sense, except the music is still annoying.
No, I think Ryoma did a really good job of growing, and I think towards the last half of the split, we actually got to see kind of more of how his style of play is going to come along. But when you look at the head-to-head matchup right here, the biggest thing that you can see is the solo kills from Jizuke are 11 compared to Ryoma's 2. And then looking at the isolated deaths, which are 12 and 14 respectively, that's pretty big when you want to compare. And I think that's what he's kind of.
I think what they're trying to do with the music is just provide a little more production value, considering they're not in studio, but it's not really working.
Every single time.
With those solo deaths, it looks like other people are looking for the 1v.
Mid lanes.
So this is also something that I generally hate about esports productions, is that you get a new toy and you just masturbate with it. And what I mean by that is, okay, so they have this cool thing and they want to show off Honda, but it's instead of just doing like a pan of this and then transitioning into a full screen of the graphic, where it's easier to see, we just end up looking at this the whole time.
That's pretty big when you want to compare these two players.
Like, for me, I do this shot, right? I do this shot, so it establishes.
No, I think
and then I cut to a full screen graphic. Because I can't read it while it's moving, right? Like, you do a little bit of movement, you're like, oh, that's cool, it's dynamic, it's engaging me as a viewer. But I don't need this. I just need a full screen graphic of this. But people get so obsessed in esports, across all esports, with like, look at our cool stage, that they make it just really shitty to watch.
Much more aggressive, and he's going to go for the 1v1s and be successful on them. And on the other hand, like, Ryoma doesn't look like the guy who's like trying to go for the 1v1s, and I think that's what he's kind of growing into the team to be, is more of this like mid laner who can like give back and be self-sufficient, and not the mid laner who's going to like win or lose you the game every single time.
I still haven't seen any gameplay footage, guys. We have we have seen 0 League of Legends in what, 26 minutes.
For the 1v1 with him though, for Ryoma.
Yeah, he's trying to dodge.
And maybe that's intentional. Maybe that is Friday Night League.
Yeah, stats don't always tell the whole story, but I think this time they kind of do. I think those are pretty good ones.
Well, that's one side of the story, but the game state is a whole nother side. So before we get into today's games, I do want to get your thoughts on maybe some spicy picks that we might be seeing here. What about you, Mark?
I think the first thing that jumped out to me was Tank Senna, just because it's a really cool build on a champion that we've seen a little bit. People have stopped taking Glacial.
Oh, we finally saw League of Legends. We finally saw it. Holy shit.
That you used to get from Glacial Augment. It makes you a lot tankier and able to, really find ways to chase people down. You still do get some damage items like Black Cleaver and stuff built later. It's just a little bit less of the straight lethality rushing, but it's super, super strong. And if people pick Senna, which you see getting banned a lot right now around the world, but this is kind of the go-to build path now.
Wait, whoa.
Stop taking Glacial.
We're talking about the strength of Tank Senna, and we're watching Genji lose a fight to top esports with Senna.
Rushing, but it's super, super strong, and if people pick Senna, which you see getting banned a lot right now around the world.
So the first time we have B-roll, it's super weird and doesn't even illustrate your point.
But this is kind of the go-to build.
You knew Mark was going to make this point about the strength of Tank Senna, and this is the clip you pick.
Now, Kobe, I believe that you had put some thoughts into this build that we're seeing from Senna and why it works.
Yeah, I mean, like Mark is saying, you're getting a lot more tanky, and with the frozen mallet, you still get to be super annoying with the slows. Some other things I'm looking at, because we saw the Tank Senna at the mid-season streamathon, have been individual items and keystones that have just been super successful in all these patches while we've been waiting. People playing before play, plus phase rush. If you're looking at the keystones, that thing got buffed on multiple patches as well.
So here's the thing.
In your games, and I think that people will incorporate a lot more in pro play. Plus phase rush.
Put phase rush. Put a full screen graphic up, or a lower third, which is, by the way, a lower third is the technical term for what you guys see as like a graphic down here, long on the screen, so we can still see this. Put a lower third or a full screen up about phase rush.
Looking at the keystones, that thing got buffed on multiple patches.
Show the buff history of phase rush. Show me what phase rush does. There's a bazillion keystones in this game. League of Legends is very complicated. You lose nothing by putting it on there.
And I think Graves is probably one of the best users of it that we've seen already in pro play, really abusing that extra move speed for both offensive and defensive purposes.
The music just slays me. The music just slays me.
We've seen him a lot coming through the queues, and I know probably we were just talking about the top lane matchup that we have here today. Are there any champions that you think will be imperative there?
Well, you talk about Graves as phase.
What was that? That added nothing.
Phase rush. I want to talk about top lane with phase rush because
it's just distracting for no reason. The camera movement's distracting. The giant Graves is distracting.
Yeah, Jace, phase rush everywhere. Wukong, phase rush, depending on the matchup. Yeah, we got 2 champions, which is better than Spring Split. Because Spring Split, we were running the trifecta of like Set, Ornn, and Aatrox, and that was kind of all you would ever see. I am glad now we have slightly more variety.
By the way, the Monty rule is show as little game IP in broadcast as possible, because people are not watching this broadcast because they want to see Graves art. Like, they're watching it because they want to learn about how to play the game, or they like the players or the teams, right? So if you have a choice to show gameplay or players or teams, you should always pick that and not just game IP.
Variety, and it's kind of gonna mix up a lot of things, because as soon as like tank tops stop becoming like the main meta for top lane, it's kind of like cascading across the whole board. And now we're actually getting to see a lot more Thresh. And a big part of Thresh is his ability to like pick and disengage. And with all these squishy champions out there, pick comps are really prevalent.
I mean, I think the analysis is going fine. Like, this is a fine segment in terms of content.
He's just so strong right now. I think we're gonna see him in every game.
If Thresh is popular in the bot lane, I know there's one bot lane champ that we can't go without mentioning, Mark. Who is that?
It's Varus. I'm so sick of seeing Varus.
I mean, that's a good setup, right? This is how a good host works, right? You set up your analysts for success. You talk to them beforehand about what the points they want to bring are, and you provide the nice lead in for them.
The same lane,
makes it feel natural.
Varus, when it's on hit Varus, you're getting in there, rattling off auto attacks. This is just, hold Q, charge
Oh,
in.
you don't like sniping? Come on.
No.
You gotta hit the skill shot.
No, I don't like it, and it's so strong right now. It's basically
Giant Varus art. Do you know who Varus is?
100%.
Here he is. We're not going to show you what he does, though.
Pick ban across the world. It even got above 100% when it was picked twice in the blind pick game during that mid-season streamathon. So, like, it's so highly prioritized. It's breaking statistics. Our stats team's not happy.
Unfortunately, we didn't learn why Varus is so good. We just learned that he is good and that he is being picked and banned in every game.
Kobe, with Varus being a popular pick in the bot lane, is there anything that you expect to see as far as other teams trying to contest it?
Yeah, like you literally... here's what I don't get.
No.
Vander picked it 27
Can I
times.
hit the skill shot?
So we're talking about the
I
blind
don't
pick
like
games,
it,
which
and
were the
it's
game
so
ones
strong
from
right
the
now.
mid-season cup.
It's basically 100% pick ban across the world.
But
It
you
even got
don't
above
show me the
100%
double Varus.
when it was picked twice in the blind pick game.
Show me the
during
double
that mid-season
Varus.
streamathon. So like, it's so highly prioritized. It's breaking statistics. Our stats team's not happy.
Show me... I'm not used to seeing that. Show me double Varus.
Now, Kobe, with Bears being a popular pick in the bot lane, is there anything that you expect to see as far as other teams trying to contest it, or it started getting banned out? I saw even in LEC earlier and was taken off the block completely. Do you think the teams today are going to choose to ban instead of letting it through as a first pick?
Yeah, for sure. Give me one of those big red buttons for the memes to just hit the ban button on Varus. I think.
Why doesn't he have the button? So, philosophically, if I have 2 months between Spring Split and Summer Split, I am trying to figure out everything I can possibly do to make this remote broadcast more compelling. You can make Kobe a button and send it to him. And maybe Kobe just came up with that idea right now. But my point is that you had all this time to think about, we have this fundamental problem that we have to get around. So we're going to figure out ways to make it more fun. You know who did the really good job of that was Blast. That's been running over the last few weeks.
I think that's going to be very prevalent. We've already seen across the world, mid-season.
But give him
as
something.
Well.
Give him
LCK,
something,
LPL,
please.
Top-level teams all bending it out. Like Mark was saying, when they had a blind pick and you can't ban, if you take away that tool, then just both teams picked it. You do have other options, the Ezreal, the Callista, Aphelios, and stuff like that, but Varus is definitely king.
Annie, are we covered? We got it all before we go through, guys?
I think so. We saw some Maokai in LEC, Maokai Orange.
So this question...
Annie, are we covered?
This, again, is addressing the entire field of analysts on an infinite number of possible answers. And so doing this is not a great idea. Oh, thanks, Sogum. You're back. WTF2 Varus. Thank you.
We got it all.
How do you respond to that as an analyst? You're like, no, I could talk for 8 more hours about everything that I've seen on this patch, and I watched the midseason cup, and, we saw LEC this morning in California time. Like, no, you can't just ask analysts that. The point of them being there is that they have infinity knowledge and can fill any amount of time.
Before we go through, guys?
I think so. We saw some Maokai in LEC, Maokai Orin. I hope that doesn't actually happen. That's a pass from me. So less tank top meta, hopefully.
Yes.
Fair enough. Well, that's all our thoughts that we have here on the desk. And without further ado, let's get the LCS
Yeah, you just got to
Summer
throw.
Splits.
Like, don't ask that question. Just throw to the start of the game. Oh, and then there's this. So, I actually like this video, but we'll get to it when we get through it. Yeah, like, this is cute. I like all the references. It's fun.
The LCS Summer Split. I'm Freak. Kobe, are you ready? Let's go.
So I did talk about this a little bit on SI, but so let's just talk about this in general. So in isolation, this is cute. I like all the references that they have. It's a fun, art style. Is this consistent with what we just saw? No. The issue is that this has nothing to do with the creative direction that we've seen previously. It's the first thing we're seeing before the games, and it's not a hype piece. This, to me, is a piece that you create because it's fun for fans to take a trip down memory lane and look at all the references and kind of enjoy it. It doesn't get me excited to watch some League of Legends. And I talked about this part in particular, which is very strange to me, which is that they're trying to create this very friendly atmosphere. And they have this last image of Kobe and Freak on the couch. But that's not the feel that LCS has ever had, right? LCS has always been the button-up sports, and you can see it. They're not thinking about what they're doing. So they're in suits, sitting on the couch with the dude who's just comfortably in his t-shirt. So it's weird already visually. But it's also, they understand that what they're doing is a more buttoned up production. And the feeling I've never ever in my life gotten the feeling from LCS that I'm hanging out on a couch with my buddies and talking about the game. That's not the tone they've ever gone for. And I said this on SI, but that's the tone we went for at LCK. You know what I mean? Like, that, I feel more of that from LEC or LCK than I do from LCS. And so this is why you need a creative director, because a creative director thinks about these details, and they think about the product, and they think about the brand, and they make sure that everything is consistent. Because this, in a nutshell, is like, this image, for me, is everything that's wrong with LCS. There are certain parts of it that I like in isolation, but when you put it together, it ends up being anti-hype and weird. And this right here is anti-hype and weird to the max. Like, there's nothing that pumps me up about this. It's internally inconsistent. It's inconsistent with their own brand. And I don't know what the purpose of it is. And it feels like to me that everything's just getting lost in the sauce. Like, they think, oh, let's make, and by the way, I'm sure they didn't make this internally. They probably hired they probably gave somebody an idea and they worked on the storyboards, and then a separate animation company made this. I don't think, it doesn't look to me like, maybe it was, but probably wasn't. You know, like, if I was making this, I would outsource it to a company and then work with them to incorporate all these little details and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know why, like, it's like they thought of this concept, and it's not a bad concept, but the execution is slightly weird because they don't understand their own goals. And then the placement of it within the broadcast is weird because it doesn't do anything to make me excited about the games. And then it's a misread on their own tone, as we can see in this image. So I like, this whole thing has just been, I think we can see, like, why people reacted so negatively, because even if you don't have that level of production expertise, I like this. There's a nice transition though, right? You go to that's nice. You go from the full screen to the fake studio. You know, that's good.
Yes, I'm Rivington Bizen III, and I am so excited.
This is actually the first thing I've actually liked in this whole thing. Rivington and Azael seem like they're excited to be there.
Excited to be getting this started with the.
I feel like LCS again for the first time in 30 minutes. I feel like I'm watching an esports show.
Vandal of video games himself, an actual world champion, Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley. Man, how you been?
It's a fun intro.
It's an honor.
Riv's great.
To be here with you.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to be back. Have some LCS games finally underway. You know, without MSI.
So anyway, we get into the games now. I'm gonna have to go conduct Cloud9 interviews because I'm already late, guys. But I think, like, a lot of people were upset, and they don't have the language or the knowledge to understand why they think this is bad. But if you actually start to pick it apart, like we just did, I mean, we just spent, you know, over an hour doing like a 30-minute segment and going kind of beat by beat to see why this wasn't working. You see the problems, and this is why people are flipping out, because it feels so crazily inconsistent, and it feels so thoughtless. And it's just everything. Like, it feels like they don't have the kind of footage or assets they need to make it compelling. It feels like the run of show is broken in the way that the tone is, it's like emotional whiplash. It's everything about the way they set it up is awkward from a technical standpoint. It doesn't look good because of the inconsistencies in the webcams. And so to come back with this, it's such a weak opener, and it leaves a very bitter taste in your mouth as a fan, because it just isn't good. And it doesn't do its job of introing the esports and introing the games. And so I think that's why a lot of people reacted very negatively to it. And I did want to take this time to kind of put this in context for people and explain why I reacted to it the way that I did. And explain a little bit more about how this works within a production sphere and how you create these concepts. And I think at the end of the day that they really need a creative director who knows what they're doing, who can redefine the LCS brand in the same way that LEC was redesigned as a successful brand. And you can hire, they'll hire an outside branding agency to do that. But you need somebody who is sort of driving that branding agency, because they're not going to know esports. So there has to be somebody sort of protecting the esportsness of it. This is how we made Flashpoint brand, right? Is that Thorin and I were there alongside Faceit and alongside the team owners and keeping the branding company on rails. And they came up with some good ideas, but you need somebody to kind of run that process. And they don't have, it's very clear they do not have anybody at Riot who's capable of doing that or is empowered to do it right now. So that's going to be it, guys. I do have to go. I'm already late. Maybe Susie is here to say goodbye with Maximus. We will do this again some other time. If you guys like this, let me know. We can do this with LEC and show why I like LEC at some point in time down the road. Or do it with a different game, Counter-Strike, everything like that. I think it's very interesting to talk about. Maybe you do as well. Yeah, hopefully I will. Susie has to let me stream more. So tweet at Little Susie, let Monty stream more.